Today's podcast is supported by David Smith of Edward Jones. Are you happy with your financial strategy? Or maybe like to see what other opportunities are out there? Well, give David a call at 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. David is only concerned about one person, that's you and your financial health. So check him out, David Smith, Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. Hey everybody, it's the Trout. Hope you're having a great day. A little bit different episode on the Trout Show today. We talk to another wonderfully talented musician, but we also talk about what his passions are other than music, and that is his relationship with a nonprofit out of New York City called Creative Muse. I'm talking about the very talented individual called Prince Terrence. Now, Prince is going to talk about his career at the beginning and talk about how he's played with some remarkably famous musicians on tour and how he hung out with Coldplay for a while. Go figure that. But also how he is dedicating his time to being a mentor at this wonderful organization in New York City to help inner city kids learn how to play music. As I said earlier, it's called Creative Muse. So I think you'll enjoy it. So it's a two-parter. Stick by and listen to the part where Prince talks about his career, and then we move into talking about his mentorship at Creative Muse. So up next, a guy that is a great musician, very talented and very well known, taking time to help inner city kids with their hopefully upcoming musical careers. That's next on The Trout Show. Let me start with you, okay? Because you're involved with this organization. We're going to get into more about what you do and all that stuff. But tell me a little about, I read about your bio where you grew up and started your life in Detroit, right? Were you born in Detroit?
I was born in Detroit.
Okay.
I was there, got out of there pretty early. So the bulk of my life was spent in Louisville, in Kentucky.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So, I lived there since first grade. So, that's my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I started playing drums. I got into drums just cause my mom would drag me to church and I was like, oh God. And then I would see the drummer and I was like, oh, this is what I can hone in on this and just be distracted by everything else that I hate about this situation.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So I was just like, this is awesome. And then every time the drummer would play, it just did something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And,
was this a Baptist church?
It was.
I know it. Southern Baptist. Yeah. That's how I grew up. The same thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
I kind of know the music they were playing, probably old gospel stuff.
Exactly. It was very the drums intrigued me, but also the thing that I saw the drums doing to people, because it wasn't a full band. It was just a drummer and the preacher, well, going off. And it kind of it reminded me of because I was always into alternative music and heavier music. And it just reminded me of the energy that punk music had, and
mm-hmm.
I was listening to Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, growing up, I was kind of an outsider in my family. They were like, why do you listen to this kind of stuff? And I was like, I don't know. I just the energy, it just does something to me.
What were they listening to?
Well, we're from Detroit, so a lot of Motown.
Oh, Motown, yeah, of course. Yeah.
My dad was super into rock and roll. He listened to Chicago and Journey. And,
okay. All right.
But you were going the heavier side. They liked the Motown sound, and your dad liked classic rock music, and then you were like, I want the heavy stuff.
Yeah, so I mean that was like at the time when on MTV when it was all Guns N' Roses and coming out of
Big
the
big hair days.
yeah, exactly. So and that was, I don't know if that was just like a timing thing because I just loved MTV, but I also loved MTV in the 80s. So I just, back then I would just sit in front of the TV and watch MTV all day.
We
So
all
whatever,
did. We all did that. Yeah.
exactly. So whatever was on there was what I liked. And it's like kind of, it's funny to think about how that was then and think about how it is now, like how, how pop music is. Like it's like whatever's in front of you is what you're going to listen to. So if like on MTV, it's Mr. Big and Warrant and all those like hair metal bands.
Yeah.
That's what you're listening to, and that was like what the culture was then. And you see it shift throughout the years.
You know
But
what's
now,
funny about though, when you think back on it, was we'd watch it to see what kind of weird stuff they do in their videos.
yeah, exactly.
They'd shoot these videos, and you're like, I don't know what this means, but I'm watching it.
Yeah,
Because you're like trying to figure out what it was, and you're like, I don't know what it means. You go back and look at them from the '80s, and you see it, and you're going like, what were they doing? I don't know. I don't think they did either. It was just kind of let's just be creative and throw something on there. But it's
yeah,
changed so much. I quit watching it years ago because it's not MTV anymore.
yeah, it's non-existent. But yeah,
No.
like Peter Gabriel videos, like
Oh
all
my
those.
gosh. Oh
You're
yeah.
just like you're just like I'm only gonna see it like one, like, and you can't rewind it, and it's just
No.
like what's come next. It's just like that anticipation. It's like waiting for the balloon to pop. But like, yeah, so that's how I got into that type of music. And then I started, like growing up in the situation I grew up in. You can't really. We always lived in apartments, like smaller
Hmm.
apartments,
Hmm.
and I couldn't have a drum kit there.
No.
So I have a friend named Brad who plays in this rock band called the Bronx, and we went to Cub Scouts together. We played sports together. We decided like we're going to be musicians, and he was going to be the guitar player, and I was going to be the drummer. And so every week he would go to guitar lesson at this little local shop called Mom's Music. And during his 30-minute guitar lesson, I would play on the display kits. So
Okay.
that was the only access that I had to drum kits for the first few years that I was interested in playing drums. But that's how I ultimately learned how to play.
Well,
Was that 30 minutes once a week?
you were schoolmates, right? You were friends and you went to school
Yeah.
together?
Yeah, we went to school together. We were in the same grade. His mom was like my Cub Scout leader and all that stuff. So,
And were you playing that kind of music you wanted to play at that time? Was it heavy metal stuff kind of leaning towards that?
I mean, I was just learning how to play, so I was just learning like basic beats, but the idea was like, yeah, we're gonna be a rock band because Nirvana was out and that was kind of like our goal at that
Okay.
time. Yeah.
But then you changed along the way. I
Yes.
mean, I
I
mean, now look where you are now compared to where you were then. I mean,
yeah,
obviously age is different and your talents got different. But
right.
along the way, something said, I don't want to do that anymore. What changed you?
Yeah, I mean, so for so long, like I played in a band with Brad my whole entire music career, basically like in Louisville, uh, punk bands, hardcore bands. And we toured the world. Like we got a record deal with this kind of big hardcore label called Revelation Records, which ironically Inside Out was on, which is like the singer from Rage Against the Machine's first band.
I think I've heard of that label. I don't think they're
Yes.
around anymore, but I think I do remember the label. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're still putting out
Are they
stuff, but it's not the same as like like 90s hardcore,
right. Yeah.
uh late 90s. So yeah, so we touring the world, touring in a van, sleeping on floor, playing in a house and then sleeping on the same floor that you just played on, just like sweaty. Like, we ultimately got an RV that we toured in. We were just kind of just always on the road. Like
Right.
since I was like while I was in high school, we were touring like every weekend. So like in Louisville, we would be on the weekend. We'd book shows in like Cincinnati and like Columbus, Ohio, just like places that were within like a 3 to 5 hour drive.
Right.
Um, but yeah, fast forward, I met obviously met a bunch of bands on the along the way,
Sure.
and there's a band from Austin called Recover, and the singer Dan Keys actually got started a solo project, and he got a record deal with Island Def Jam.
Hmm.
Um, Pretty big deal. And so when he was putting together his band for his live show, he was like, "I want you to be my drummer."
Mm.
And I was like, "Well, I was like in Louisville." He was like, "I'm moving to New York. Like, I got this record deal. Like, I'm really doing this."
Ah, now I see how it happened.
Yeah.
'Cause he was
So
from Austin. He moved to New York.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So then he was in New York, like, and this is New York at the prime, like American Apparel, like hipster, like Vice magazine, you know, sweaty dance party scene, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I have to be there. And
Oh,
it was really
yeah.
hard for me to leave the band and like leave all my friends and everything in Louisville, but I was like, the only way to progress in like what I want to do is to take this step.
You got to take a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I moved to New York, and played with this band. It's called Young Love, and we toured. You know, the first like year was all kind of just rehearsals, and we played some parties in New York, and then we started touring like pretty extensively. The first tour we did was with Good Charlotte. Um, we did a tour with like Lady Sovereign. I don't know if you remember her. She's like a
Mm.
rapper from UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. Like, and it was different for me, and it was also different for him for the other guys in that band because they all had come from hardcore and similar to me, but then we were like going into this new world of like playing kind of like more polished like pop music, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was still a little gritty, but it was definitely not like the guitar swinging. Like it was just much sexier for all of us. You know, it was
Okay.
like
Got it.
we
Yeah.
were we were like we were growing up. You know, like so.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. How old were you when you moved to New York?
I was 25.
Okay. But you know
Yeah.
what? To all the people I interview, there's two things usually, well, three things. One, they start in music very young.
Hmm.
Okay. They get the touch. I was 12 when I started. People, they get the touch.
Yeah.
Amazingly so, no matter the color of your skin, a lot of people get started in church.
Yeah.
They just, as soon as you said that, I went, yeah, that doesn't surprise me, but then it's out.
It's that exposure.
It's that exposure. And then three, if they want to succeed, they have to go someplace they're not comfortable with. There's that point that if you really are in it, if you're in, you got to go dive in.
Yeah, exactly.
So how long did that situation last for you then?
Well, like what you were saying, it was when I moved to New York, it was still like I was playing in punk bands. We were never making money. Like we only made enough money to like get to the next show,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
luckily rent in Louisville was cheap, but like so when I moved to New York, I literally moved with my dog, like one tiny suitcase and like my cymbal bag and snare. And like Island Def Jam set me up with like a place to live.
That's
Luckily,
nice. Yeah.
that was like the hardest part was out of the way. But I didn't have any furniture, so I just like slept on
The
like
floor.
the floor, and I literally used my dog as a pillow and my clothes as a blanket. And it was like, and I would go out partying every night and like just come home and like pass out. It was like that was like the lifestyle then, and it wasn't really like it wasn't glamorous yet.
No, it's not
Like,
glamorous.
and I was less, but then when the checks started coming in, like I was like, wow, I'm getting paid to play music. Like I moved to New York. I'm actually like, there's like a check with my name on it that is a direct result of like me playing music. And that was just like a foreign concept to me because we had never made money before.
Yeah. You made little money. Yeah.
So to be getting to, it was like the the biggest like epiphany was like, wow, like I'm making money to play music. And it was just, that was, that was life changing.
Did you think at the time, going back to that time, that you were not worthy of being able to play professionally, or were, and it's a personal thing, I know, because people
Yeah.
I've ran into, they don't want to, oh, we're not good enough. Well, that's because you don't think you're good enough. Did you
Right.
think of yourself as, I'm going to be living on the floor with my dog for the rest of my life because I can't make it? Concerned about your financial health? And reach out to David Smith with Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. He can conduct business where you are. Get your financial health checkup with David Smith with Edward Jones. His number one concern is you. That's David Smith with Edward Jones, 469-372-1587.
No, like, well, at that time, I knew that that was just the beginning of what was about to happen.
Right.
Like, I knew this was like the beginning of a new cycle. And the kind of like the hype around the band was like, we were kind of like a buzz band. So it wasn't really, the only reservations that I had about the whole situation were like me as like a hardcore kid, like I was just always like, man, like I'm never gonna sell out, like I'm never gonna be on a major label, you know what I mean? And like, so all my friends from that world who still thought like that,
Yeah.
like, oh, big New York guy moving, like they.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing I was kind of like insecure about. But then I got past it. I was like, well, I'm making money now to be a musician. You forget about the sellout aspect very quickly.
Well, I think, and it's so different now than even then. I mean, you
Oh,
think
yeah.
about it, it's so many people, and I was had lunch with some major label people about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They were in town, and I was interviewing one of their people, and they're out of Nashville. They're country people, but I asked them about how the music industry is. I mean, I know all about. I've been through all the iterations of it, from albums to cassettes. I've been through all of it.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody the same thing, because they said it used to be the lake was a mile deep and very short. So it was not a very big lake, but it was really deep. Now the
Right.
lake is a mile wide and it's this deep because everybody's into it.
Yeah.
Because they sit at home and they do their beats or they write their music, whatever. And one of the guys told me, he said, look, it's harder now, I think, than it was back then. Because I said, do people still want a label deal? He goes, oh, yeah, they do. But there's other people that just throw stuff up, and maybe somebody gets it on TikTok, or they see it on YouTube or Instagram, and all of a sudden everybody's buying, or not buying, they're going there.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's, you went through what a lot of people do. I wouldn't do it. I had an opportunity. I will tell you the truth. I had an opportunity. I said to my parents, I'm out of here at 19 years old. I'm leaving. I'm going to go to Houston. I'm going to join a band in Houston and all that. Well, they convinced me I should go and get an education, which I didn't finish. But I look back on that and go, why didn't I do that? Because I didn't want to do what you did, to be quite frank. I was comfortable. I didn't
Right.
want to live on the floor. I didn't want to
Yeah.
travel with 4 guys in a beat up van and at
Right.
night going, are we going to split that burger or what? You know what I mean? So you've gotten to the point now where you got through that.
Yeah.
And I always told people, and I shopped stuff around. I went back in the 90s, I went into the studio and recorded stuff and had friends come in and record. But I knew some people that were very good at performing, and, shot stuff to labels, and got the rejection letters like everybody does when you do, unless you know somebody.
Right.
So then you did that. What happened after that?
Yeah. So, that band Young Love, like once we started touring, it was kind of big, it was life changing. Like we toured in a bus, and we had, riders, like the clubs would bring us the beer that we wanted. And like,
Yeah. You were a real band. You're a real band, a professional band.
it was all new to me. And so it's kind of, in a way, it was culture shock, because, going from little little hole in the wall like dive punk bars to playing like, House of Blues everywhere. It's like it was, it was cool. So after that, drummers are kind of like notorious for like bouncing from project to project and like
Yeah.
obviously like in at the time I wouldn't say now so much because people have replaced drummers with electronics, but uh like back then it was drummers were like in demand, and especially like drummers that were down to just like drop anything and tour, drop everything. So then I started playing with Young Love actually played a show at South by Southwest.
Mm.
It was like I think it was like a Nylon magazine show with Santi Gold, and this was before Santi had any release out or anything. And she was like, when I start touring, I want you to be my drummer. And I was like, okay, like people said that kind of stuff to me.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh, yeah.
So then fast forward and like she releases her record and it's like a huge deal, and she's like this huge like new artist, and she hit me up and asked me to play drums for her, and I was like, yeah. So I joined her band, kind of like the same type of situation as me leaving Louisville. It was kind of like I can't, like, this is the time for me to be selfish, so to speak, and like pursue my career, not worry about like how it's going to affect other people.
You just can't do that. Yeah. You really can't.
It's really hard to do, but it's like if you want to succeed in this industry, it's kind of you have to do it.
Yep.
So I left Young Love and started playing drums with Santi. We did on her first record, we did the whole festival circuit in Europe, like Reading and Leeds and
wow,
festival and all that stuff. And it was during the time when, so like my music career kind of like aligns with like what we were saying, like how whatever's in front of you on MTV is what you're watching. So like when in the Young Love era, the bands that were around were like the Killers had just started, and like the Bravery and those kind of like dance punk bands, and we kind of like fit into that world.
Right.
And then with Santi, it was the new wave of like cool, like like the Yeah Yeahs had already been around, but it was still like that dance. Like it was when the indie dance got like bumped up to the next level. So then you got like the teams and artists like that. So we were in that world. So we were like the next level of like indie dance artists that were like, now we're the ones that are being played on MTV,
Let me ask you a logistical question here, because I always want to know. So you're playing with her band. You're one of the band. How many people were in the band?
There were 2 dancers, a guitar player, a bass player, and drummer. So
okay. So were you I'm just curious for my own benefit here, nothing special. Were you just considered a hired gun? You just got a flat rate to play?
Yeah, exactly.
She got the money, the big money, and you got to play. Yeah.
And that was a situation with the previous band too. It was, a hired gun situation.
Yeah.
I got paid as
there's nothing wrong with that, because I know studio musicians out of Nashville, and that's how they get paid. And after that, what happened?
Yeah, like so the Santi thing was cool because we did a full US Coldplay tour, like main support for Coldplay.
Oh wow.
So we got to do, that was really awesome.
Did you hang out with the guys from Coldplay? They seem like pretty nice guys.
Ping pong with Chris Martin, and like the bass player guy was cool because he would come with us to the bar, and like people wouldn't know who he is, and like,
he was, yeah.
Yeah, we would meet girls and be like, he's in Coldplay, and they're like, yeah, right, because no one even notices. Nobody knows what the guys in Coldplay look like except for the singer.
Yeah.
So they're just like, sure, he's in Coldplay. But that was pretty funny.
And you're like hanging out with him and all that stuff. You got to the point in your life, which is, I go back to what you said at the very beginning. You and your buddy sat down and said, I'm going to play drums and you play guitar, and we're going to play music.
Yeah.
Now look at you.
Yeah. And it's like what you said about how everyone always starts young. And it's like when I look back my earliest memories, it's like I'm still essentially the same person, like as I was when I was like old enough to form thoughts that I had always had a love for music, and I still do. And I always knew that I wanted to play music, and I'm still doing it. Um,
So what are you doing now?
so yeah, so fast forward, like after Santi, I played with another band called Hearts Revolution. We were like another electro like dance band. We toured mostly in Europe, and this was like during when music blogs just happened.
Okay.
So this was pre Spotify, and this is when you could download endless music on music blogs. So that's how like this band got big, from just downloads, and then they just like were a guy and a girl couple who wrote some songs, and then just started getting all this traction. They're like, wow, like we need to play a show. We need to like get a band together.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like kind of a turning point in the broader music industry, because labels were you didn't need labels at that time except for tour support, but you were getting paid, like especially as a dance band, like because you're providing a different. It's not like you're playing a rock show,
Right.
so you're like taking the place of a DJ because you're playing in environments where people are going to be dancing. So you can put a dance band next to a DJ on a DJ club night in Paris, and it'll be a better experience than if you have like a abrasive rock band playing, you know? So we were getting flown around the world from party to party to play those kinds of things.
And you know what's cool about that is the money you make.
Yeah, exactly.
They're paying you. It's not you said it earlier. You wanted a seedy bar, and you're trying to get your money for the bar guy after you guys play, and they don't want to pay. And it's the same way here.
And then another shift happened in the music industry where it just became like completely unaffordable to tour, which is nothing new.
Yeah.
But that was something that without a label, I wanted to. My whole thing was like I want to pay my band, because I want to be like.
Yeah.
I don't want these people to be out here touring for my dream.
No, but you've been there. You know what it was like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then, like, I kind of hit a moment with that where I was just like, I can't afford to pay a full band. So then I slimmed it down, and then settled down a little bit, and then I started. So like during the during like the Young Love era and like my whole like New York music experience,
Mm-hmm.
started having like club nights started wanting band members to DJ. So there would be like Block Party would play, and then the singer would DJ the after party.
Gotcha.
So we were doing that, and then I was the DJ. So like when we would have an after party for whatever band I was playing with, I would DJ. So when we got back to New York, and say like in Young Love or like any of the other bands that I played with, any touring musician will tell you that the hardest thing about touring is not touring. It's that time when you're home, when you're just like, okay, if I'm not on the road, I'm not making money. What am I supposed to do? Like, I'm a waiter now. Like I was just on tour with Coldplay. Like,
yeah.
What am I supposed to do now? Like,
where's my next gig?
Yeah, so I fell into DJing that way, luckily, because it's like music adjacent, and in many situations, the money is like better than touring. For as far as like creative muse, like when Jamie was assembling the team, she hit me up, and she kind of, Jamie's like this eccentric, like she's one of those people that is just like exploding with ideas at all times, and it's just like bam, 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 and I was just like, sounds awesome, like sign me up. Like I don't even know what you just said, but sign me up. You like, I get the like, you're saying something about working with children, teaching them music. I'm down.
You're in.
Yeah, sign me up. So it's great. Like, so now we're working with kids so
tell me what you actually do. And I was when I heard about you guys, and I said, well, I like the model. So, and I know they have a lot of people that are creative, not just musicians. They have actors and dancers and things like that. But so when you go in, and do you go to schools, or how do you find the kids? I mean, you know where they are, but I mean, how do they get to you?
Yeah, so in the past, Jamie's worked at different centers throughout the city over the years, but right now in this this moment we're working out of a I guess it would be a community center called Campos Plaza,
Okay. All right.
East Village, Lower East Side of
Okay.
Manhattan. Very cool, like, art neighborhood,
Hmm.
historic area. So we work with those kids, and their ages kindergarten through fifth grade, and then we have like a teen programming
Okay.
also. Um, so it's cool because a lot of these kids, like, they're holding a guitar for the very first time in their lives, and they're holding drumsticks for the very first time in their lives. It's all about like the access and exposure to the arts, because if it weren't for us handing them that guitar, like, they may never.
They never get a chance.
Yeah, and it's like all you need is that one interaction, or like touch that one kid that's like that glows when it's just, that's how it happened with me. And I kind of had to like seek out, because I knew that I always wanted to be involved in music, but now there's so much things for kids. There's so many things. There's video games, like, kids aren't going outside. It's
No, no. I
like,
mean, it always amazes me when you go outside and you never see kids playing.
yeah, exactly. So
They're all standing around doing this.
yeah, exactly.
And the other thing though that you probably are aware of, because I've talked to a couple of more than a couple, but a lot of the schools, especially the inner city schools, are cutting back music programs because they don't want to spend the money, or people can't afford it.
Yeah,
And getting interested in it, because obviously being a musician myself, it is just a real joy once you learn how to play music.
right.
Whether you do it for yourself or thousands of people, doesn't matter. You've had exposure to both.
Yeah,
And I'm saddened by that fact. So it is also, I was told by a person that runs a nonprofit that said, becoming a musician helps you become a better student.
oh yeah,
And I
for sure.
and I never thought, I'm a lead guitar player. I don't think about what I do, like you drum, and if I say, hey, do me a fill, I
Yeah,
need an 8 bar, I need something here, you just go, okay. You don't think about it. But
right.
that same logic that does that makes you a better student.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's really what intrigued me about Creative Muse, was the fact is, and I know these are inner city and they're immigrants or kids of color and all that stuff, but that doesn't bother me at all. Because
Mhm.
the one thing that was intriguing also to me was the model. I think it was John that told me this, that Jamie's thinking about, or there had been concerns about taking this model and making it bigger and doing it other places because if
Yeah,
it works there.
yeah, that's the goal.
And finding people. And the other thing, I think, tell me if I'm incorrect on this, do the people that come in, do you have volunteers? All right, so you're a musician, and then the other people, they volunteer or do they get paid? Because I saw something about they get
Yeah,
paid too.
yeah, we get paid. We actually got a grant from the city, which
I saw
was
that 1.7. I did see that. Yeah.
was like, it's a very specific thing, because this wouldn't be happening if it wasn't for the city actually like being proactive about keeping the arts alive.
Right.
New York coming out of COVID. So the program, the grant is called Creatives Rebuild New York, and the idea is that you have actual creatives that are like active musicians. So like, we're able to still do what we do musically, and we're working directly with kids. We're not we're all actively in our industries. Like, this one of our artists, Joel, he just did a play. Like, everyone's like, I'm still touring. Like, I'm going to LA to DJ, and like everyone is still doing things.
They're doing their thing, but they're also helping out here.
Yeah, like, we're not just teachers.
It has to be rewarding for you because of the instrumentation that you play, all these different things. If a kid comes in and says, hey, you got an SG kind of like back there on the wall, I want to learn how to play that. Okay,
Yeah,
let me show you some stuff. Well, this is hard. Well, yeah,
yeah,
it's called practice. But
yeah,
then if you see that spark, that's got to be rewarding for you to see it, because and even if they don't go anywhere with it, you change that moment in their life. That
exactly.
also, you don't know. I'm assuming you don't know what their life at home is like.
Yeah,
They may not
exactly.
have any parents, or they may just have one. They may live in poverty. Whatever it is, you put a smile on their face,
Yeah,
and then you can regale them with stories about what it's like to be a traveling musician.
Exactly.
And I would also, and you mentioned earlier, a lot of these kids probably have they probably say there's no way in the world that I can do what he does because I'll never have, my mom and dad can't afford fill in the blank. They can't afford a guitar. They can't afford this. They can't afford that. And then you show them, hey, look, this is how I started. Nobody gave me money. I had to do all this on my own.
Exactly. Yeah, and it takes a certain type of like hunger once you're exposed to it. And then once you see it, you're just like you can't really get your mind off of it, and then it just becomes a part of you.
Yep.
So that's what there's a lot of kids that I can just look at them the first time that they're exposed to something. I just see I can see it happening. I can see the magic real time, which is very cool. And that's the cool thing about doing this is like even if some of the kids aren't interested, the thing is we're giving them that option that they otherwise like probably wouldn't have had. So the program is the cool thing about the program is that it's to benefit the community as well as benefit the artists of New York, like us as artists. So we can still create our art, and we're also giving back to the community, which is just the most ideal situation.
You're both being helped by each other.
Exactly. Thank you again. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Well, that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. Thanks so much for listening. If you want more information about The Trout Show or would like to watch this same interview on YouTube, visit our website at thetroutshow.com. Special thanks to Prince Terrence for him coming on talking about his career and his mentorship at Creative Muse. For information about Creative Muse, you go to their website at creativemuse, that's musc.org. About Prince Terrence, want to find out more? Go to Instagram, his name, Prince Terrence, one word, and you can find him. And I'm the Trout, and as always, thanks for listening, and as you know what I always say, it's only rock and roll, but gosh darn it, we like it. Until next time, see ya.